Toronto, and I am the co-author of the book Internationally Abreast: Exercise as Medicine. I am also the founder of Dragons Abreast Toronto, and I'm a paddler today and have been for the last 25 years, a large part of my life. So it is a pleasure to talk with you today.
And I'm Michelle Hanton, based in Australia, founder of Dragons Abreast Australia. I have been involved in breast cancer advocacy and dragon boating for, I think it's about 23, 24 years now. Time flies. And with Eleanor, it's been my great pleasure to co-author Internationally Abreast: Exercise as Medicine.
So what was the inspiration behind this book? It seems to be important to people to know that.
And yes, it's a question we're asked a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So for myself, I think it was really just wanting to have a record and the world to have a record of the wonderful experiences that we've all had by being members of breast cancer dragon boat teams, and to know how it began, why it began, and how it has impacted around the world.
Yes, absolutely. And we've talked, over the years about getting together on something. And then when we were all locked down with COVID, it just kind of seemed like the right time to set that ball in motion, because as you've so rightly said, it is about recording the history. Because one of the things that I have noticed is, as the movement, like with everything, has got so old, 25 years, there's a lot of people that are unaware of history. And the history is so important because it influences how we go forward. Like, when I was diagnosed, there was no breast cancer dragon boating. There were no breast nurses. Where did all these things come from? I think that's really important to know. And for me personally, and I know for you, Eleanor, we wanted to document that and leave that for the future generations yet to be diagnosed. So they have that historic record. And the other thing for me is, we're very blessed to be survivors and to actually have access to many of those founding members, so we can actually get the story with accuracy from those who have walked that path.
Yes, exactly. And it's been a pleasure doing it. So
it's been fun.
It has been.
So the best quote and experience that we've received, that's a really hard one, isn't it?
It is. There have been many wonderful quotes from people from around the world, as we said earlier. And it's hard to pick one that is anything any more than another. I actually looked through some of them today to try and see something that stood out for me. And I was interested to find that one of the women from Romania, Mihaela, when she wrote her quote, she says, "When I started to train, I was feeling alone, not understood by anyone, useless. Now, being a part of this amazing group and feeling like someone who helps build this team, I feel like I have grown wings to fly." And I thought it was a lovely analogy, the thought of dragon boating being similar to having wings and flying, because it is a bit like that in a boat.
Absolutely. It is so interesting that you picked that quote, Eleanor, because just yesterday I was a guest being interviewed elsewhere, and I chose that quote.
Oh, did you really?
Because what's so interesting about that group is Immunis Dragons formed during full COVID lockdown. And
Yes. Do we know what Immunis Dragons stands for?
I would have to look.
I don't. I know I don't, but yeah. So I think Michelle has said a little bit about what the goal was in writing the book. I mean, part of it was to record the history and to have it not be lost, because I think we have experiences of losing other history, which is sometimes to our disadvantage in the future. And I think in this instance, it was the very strong belief that what this book has to offer and what the experience of teams and people around the world has been in breast cancer dragon boating is something that should be available to the people newly diagnosed and the people diagnosed in the future. If there is no record of it, then how are they going to find out about it? Well, hopefully they'll find out about it from the many teams themselves. But still, I think it's useful to have something on record that gives them hope at a time they need it.
Definitely. And when you're first diagnosed, I certainly remember from my own perspective, you're kind of searching for information, and suddenly breast cancer is on your radar.
Mm-hmm.
And you want information. So there's all the medical information. There's a lot of dietary information. There's lots of things telling you need to do this, you need to do that, etc. And there's also quite a lot of scary negative stuff. And yet when you pick up this book, what you get between the pages of this is there's stories of hope, there's stories of courage. And, yes, there are people with metastatic disease that are in this book, but what they're saying is how well they are living with breast cancer.
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing. It's about living life to the full. And the Dragon Boat is a wonderful vehicle to allow you to do that. And somewhere in the book, one of the ladies says, I think it was Diane Mowat actually, from Dragons of West Toronto, says, when you get in the boat, you leave all your worries on the shore.
Yes, yeah.
And you go from strength to strength as those stories would come in as frightened, not knowing, lost souls.
Yeah.
And then through the dragon boat, the dragon spirit fills you with that ability to fly.
One of the things that I was told by somebody early on was that there's a silent knowing between the members of the team. You don't talk about breast cancer a lot, but you're there if there's a need to talk about it or a need to act and do something with someone else or for someone else. And so it's I think silent knowing was a good way of explaining the understanding that goes on between people when they've gone through a similar experience.
Definitely. Yeah. It's and again there are quotes that come through consistently about just being able to glance across at the other person even though you don't know them, and that quiet smile is reassuring.
Yes. Yeah. So passion. What was the passion that drove you initially, Michelle?
Well, for me, I was 38 when I was diagnosed, and my daughter was 3 years old. And I thought, I'm going to die, and that's going to be the end of it, because all I ever read was negativity.
Yep.
And then I heard about the Dragon Boat, and that kind of ignited some flame within me, I suppose, to the positivity that exuded from reading those stories. And that's what drove me to establish Dragons of West in Australia.
Yeah.
But what has kept me going, I think, is on a personal level, the enjoyment I've received from it. But on the broader level, it it shines the spotlight firmly on breast cancer. And I think that is very important because there are so many great causes out there. And if we allow the spotlight to be removed, then suddenly your funding disappears and all kinds of other services that have been fought for by breast cancer advocates in those early days disappears. Yes. So, it's intertwined with advocacy for me. And that little girl, my daughter, that was 3 years old, is now a 27-year-old woman. Yes. So I want to ensure that those things continue for her and into her future, because she lives with that family history of breast cancer.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting because I think my passion was probably more on a physical level, in that I was captivated by the idea. I always had loved water, and I had not really done water sports, and the thoughts of doing something, being on the water, and seeing it to me, it's like it opens up another room in your house. It's like you've got your world has enlarged just by being on the water, and doing that with a group of people, and seeing and helping and building that, was, I guess, as close to having a real passion for it at that time for me, and has continued to be, to see it stay the way it was, to see it stay as a place that is welcoming and open to anybody, and not deviated too far from the path of what the original intention was, which was, to recognize the breast cancer uh, issues, and carry on our paddling as breast cancer teams, and not get too far away from that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, Milena from Italy, she's from Florence, Dragon Lady, she sums it up perfectly when she says, I've gained an understanding of the priority in my life: solidarity, friendship, the road from illness to be a Dragon Lady. The road is not always easy to travel. The team has phases, and sometimes stormy phases, but strength and solidarity come first. And I
Yes,
think that's a
that's
big part of
wonderful.
it, yeah, that resonates. Even today, when you meet new paddlers that step in the boat, and I'm sure you have this too, Eleanor, they say, thank you for creating this
Hmm.
opportunity.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
very heartwarming.
It is. It's heartwarming to know that it's still that way, at about the 25-year mark, and hopefully will
Absolutely.
continue that way forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Benefits and expectations.
So, what would we tell a newbie? For me, I always make sure that a newbie understands where it began, that it began with a breast in a boat as a trial. And it's thanks to them that, and Sandy Smith, the first global liaison, that we are all here today
Hmm.
in Australia. And that they can expect to find new friendships, new confidence, gain physical strength, and confidence in their bodies
Yes.
whilst having fun.
Confidence and control in their bodies, because I think the loss of control is one of the frightening things about the diagnosis of breast cancer. And to feel that you've made a decision, you're doing something that is actually going to, um, bring that control back to you, and give you a comfort level at the same time as you're attaining a physical strength you've probably never had.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. I think that's what is a big surprise for many women, and especially
Yes.
for those that choose to go on and take it to the next level. But in the breast cancer teams, we are all about participation and inclusiveness. But really, the sky is the limit for anybody who wants to be a
Hmm.
little bit more competitive,
Hmm.
because the dragon
Yeah.
boat community offers opportunities.
And for most, I think they can't help but become more physically active and more and stronger than they have been, because so certainly in my day, very few of us were on sports teams of any sort until we started dragon boating. So it it's bound to make a difference.
Absolutely. And
Good.
it's very unique because, when you get tired, you can stop and you're still carried along in the boat with everybody else. You're not left
Everybody
behind.
else, yes. So I guess the other thing, you've got the runner there telling you that we would love it if you would buy a copy of the book. I think you would enjoy it, and I think you're bound to know somebody who would benefit by reading it. So
absolutely. And I'm just going to leave you with one little wonderful piece of news I had. Is one of the breast cancer advocacy groups that I know has ordered 2 cases of the book, and they're going to be distributing them in their own local community to the oncology unit, to the breast care nurses, and to some of the wonderful sponsors that they have, even though they're not dragon boaters, because they just find the story resonates with them. So that's pretty cool.
That's great, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Because that'll still be a challenge for all of us getting them into the hospital. So
yes. And I always remember in the early days, I was told, if you want your doctor to look at something or you want to bring something to their attention, it's much better if a patient walks in and plonks it on their desk.
We can all benefit from that.
We can.